be screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of, What If Ichigo Enters KUROINU? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Takamagara 2012 on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. It's been over a month since Volt, leader of the mercenary squad, KUROINU had taken over all of Eostia. One by one, they took over each part of the land, from the Dark Elves' castle to each of the districts. And both the Queen of the Dark Elves and the Princess Knights of Chivalry led by Celestine was fallen to the very group, and broke them in, both mind and body. During the month, Volt met with a mysterious wizard and joined in the group. In exchange for the women pleasuring the wizard, he cast a spell on each of them so their energy and urges are 10 times as stronger than a regular human and made sure they won't ever get PRGN, making them the perfect SEC slaves. During the month of endless pleasure, a female wearing a black hooded cloak was spying on what Volt in his new castle, watching all of the girls pleasing every man outside the castle walls. She looked down at them in disgust, every lust-filled man pounding their man meats inside them like dogs in heat, with the women moaning with their eyes half closed, their pupils blank with lust, and their tongues hanging out lewdly. Olga, Chloe, Maya, Prim, Claudia, Alicia, Kagaya, Ro, and even you, teacher. The woman said. One by one, you all were seized by that man's grasp. That BSTRD is going to pay for this. For all that he and those mercenaries had done to corrupt this land. While she gazed down at the town villagers, 2 men from KUROINU appeared on the same roof, spotted the cloaked woman. She felt something tingling in the back of her neck and turned to see the men from KUROINU. She drew her sword out and glared at them. We've been looking all over for you. One man said. Captain Volt wants to see you personally. The other man said as the 2 drew their weapons out. You can tell Volt to embrace my butt if he wishes to see me himself. The cloaked woman said. Little did she know was that the leader overheard it all as he appeared behind the 2 commanders from the stairway. He chuckled and smirked as he took her insult to account. I am here now. The leader said as he stood over the cloaked woman with his arms crossed. You wanted me to embrace your butt, well I'll be happy to do so once I break you in. Then again, it wouldn't be a first to break an elf. Especially if it's the High Elf's apprentice. The girl growled as she removed her cloak and revealed herself, a young girl with light brown hair and hazel eyes glaring at the new ruler of Eostia. She wore a 2-piece silk garment, the top covered her 86-centimeter bust while she wore a frilly skirt that stretched down to her upper knees. She held out a dagger to defend herself. Tell me why trash like you are defiling the women and corrupting everyone in this land? Corrupting? Volt laughed at the very word as he stared down at the girl in front of him. I have simply turned this land into paradise. A place that every man would love to experience their lustful wishes coming true. The elf felt disgusted at Volt's dream, so disgusted that it made her feel like vomiting in front of Volt as a sign of disrespect. She immediately noticed that Volt summoned 2 orcs in an attempt to capture her. She tightened her grip on her weapon as she prepared herself. And this is simply the beginning. Volt continued his monologue. First Eostia succumbed to our rule, soon the lands near this place and soon the entire world will soon fall to us. Every woman on this ball of dirt and water will fall to every man's wishes and make their perverted dreams come true. You will be our stepping stone to a whole new world beyond Eostia. Surrender and be part of my lifelong dream, girl. Not a chance in hell. She spat back. I had hoped you'd say that. That's why I won't let you escape. Volt snapped his fingers and made the orcs and the men to capture her. The elf fought back by swiftly decapitating the orcs' heads, then she left a deep gash on both of the men's chests. The moment they were all down, she fled as fast as she can. Volt smirked as he saw his new prey fled in a flash. She won't be far. I can still count on that. Volt said with a smirk as he walked ahead with more of his minions following him. Elsewhere, the Elfling arrived to an empty spot in the alleys. She panted strong from exhaustion despite it all, relieved that she's away from Volt and his minions. She took a deep breath and opened a portal in front of her. Just as she was about to go in it, she was zapped from behind by the male wizard. He was a young man with short brown hair. His green eyes gazed down at her through the gleam of his glasses. My name is Kin and I am Volt's most powerful sorcerer. No escapes from his watch while I am here. The wizard said, his smug smile worn as he watched the young elf struggle to get back up. When he encounters a new woman to add to his collection, he intends to catch her. So give up now and make this easy on yourself. Well, then. Volt's gonna have to wait, because I am not his type. The Elfling uses all of her strength and fired a blast of blue flames at the wizard, damaging him a little. While his guard was down, she used what's left of her strength in her legs and ran for into the portal before it closes. Moments later, she arrived to her domain. It was a large chapel-like building with the inside painted completely white with multiple paintings, plants and furniture. When she arrived, she was completely out of breath and low on strength. Even with my strength, I can't manage to save the girls or my senpai, especially if either Volt or that BSTRD wizard was in my way. I do need someone to do it for me, but who? The woman walked over to her fountain and projected a visual scene in real time from the water. She saw projections of a powerful young warrior. She saw how courageous and generous the young man is in his battles and during his rescue missions. An idea came to her mind as she finally made her decision. With his power, he can lead Eostia to a land of peace once more. The young elf nodded before taking a deep breath as her body began glowing in a sky-blue aura. Bui I rod plural rodden o I koa iwanor, tol nin hai rashan o kon. Shibuya, Tokyo, Japan, Seishin's house. It was a quiet Saturday night at the beginning of summer and Seishin was at his home as usual, after taking some time off from his job as a soul reaper. He had on a sleeveless undershirt and a pair of sweatpants. His hair was also tied back until it was only a long ponytail. Though he doesn't really need it, despite the large decrease in hollow activity falling all around Shibuya and Karakura town, he kept his combat pass in his right pocket. Nothing says relaxation than watching Toonami on a Saturday night and eating popcorn, Seishin said as he turned on the 80-inch plasma widescreen. He checked the time and saw that it was 11:57. Seishin went back to the kitchen and took out the popcorn from the microwave. Finally a few days with no hollow activity going on. Seishin walked past the time as it says 11:59 while holding a large bowl of popcorn. Just me, some popcorn and a good 7 hours of epic anime awesomeness. At least Yoriichi, Ranjaku or either of the Traceras won't be around to tease me with their hot bodies. A thought of those girls came to his head, each of the girls teasing him with their HRM clothes, their voluptuous bodies and some of them with their kissy-face lustful looks on their faces. Seishin immediately snapped out of his temporary imaginary zone and gasped a little as he dropped his bowl of popcorn until a set of hands caught his bowl mid-fall. Those girls are still haunting your mind. Seishin's hollow appeared beside him in his astral form. He chuckled at Seishin's out-of-breath state as he put the bowl down and helped him back up on his feet. It's like they are everywhere. Seishin exclaimed as he finished catching his breath. Those girls kept on teasing me with their looks, their endowed chests, and their choice of clothing. Can't really blame them, you've always been a sucker for big boobs, kid. His hollow smirked as he crossed his arms until Seishin gripped his hollow counterpart by the collar and started shaking him like a rag doll. I can't help it. I love them. Seishin cried until he and his hollow half sensed a disturbance. The clock struck 12 o'clock midnight, the television and everything else were suddenly turned off. The two looked around for a second until they felt a gravitational disturbance. The two started floating while all the electrical appliances started flickering on and off repeatedly. Seishin. What's going on? His hollow called out as the electricity began to howl in a high pitch and an oval pillar of light surrounded the two. I don't know, but one thing's for sure, we're going for a ride. Seishin replied as the two vanished in a bright light. The two flew through a long blue and black void in light speed. There has to be a reason that we're being transported. Hollow continued. Someone has to be the one transporting us, but who? Well, we're about to find out. Seishin replied as the two saw a light at the end of the tunnel. It grew brighter and brighter as they got closer. His inner hollow quickly returned to his inner world while Seishin came out the portal and landed face first on the strong marble floor. As he got back up, groaning from the strong impact, he gazed at the building he's in. Where am I? Seishin wondered. You're in the chapel. I transported you here. He looked up only to see the very Elfling as she stared down at him. When Seishin eyed her chest and uniform, she simply smiled and helped him up. I've been waiting for you. Glad you dropped in, Seishin Samu. The girl greeted. Who are you and how do you know my name? He asked her, looking at her with a stunned look of confusion. Well. Let's start things off with that question. She began to explain. I was looking for a warrior to help with this situation and when I saw you and your past actions, I am rather impressed. Seishin was shocked that she was there at every moment he had done. It was like she has eyes in every exact spot he's at every exact moment it happened. A simple thought came to his mind and with it, Seishin asks. Who are you? My name is Aliyah, I'm an elf and an ascending apprentice of High Elf Celestine Lucullus. She introduced herself and kindly bowed before the young man. Celestine. Seishin was puzzled as he was new to these people and the place he's in. He then ceased his confusion and resumed with his question in mind. Where am I exactly? And what's going on? Well, before I can tell you what's going on now, I'll tell you what happened a very long time ago. Aliyah placed her hand on his shoulder and closed her eyes as everything around her went black. The next thing that happened, the two were floating in the air. Seishin turned to her as she began to explain. It all happened several hundred years ago in the western border, the land of Eostia, when a war had occurred. Humans fought against the Dark Elves for control of the lands. Just recently, a small special task force named KUROINU were assigned to help with the war. Apparently they grew cold-hearted and joined forces with the orcs for a coup d'etat. They charged into human territory and took over their areas, not to mention the Dark Elves' domain. Before long, they claimed independence over the lands and everything in the newfound areas. As for the females, they made them their personal slaves for service. Who are the females in each of the areas? Seishin wondered. Those women you're talking about must be of that much importance for you and the people here. They are called the Knights of Chivalry, Aliyah answered as she brought up the projections of each of the women, 9 in total. Alicia Arcturus, Prim Fiore, Roro, Kagaya, Claudia Levantine and my teacher Celestine. I see, and what about those last two there? He asked about those two dark elves despite the blush on his face. The black-haired one wore a CRP top that exposes her cleavage, her visible nipples and her stomach, a black G-string thong, long purple thigh-high leggings and black high heels. The blonde red-eyed dark elf who has her long hair tied in a ponytail in the back wore a CRP top, like her queen, but connected to her knee-high garterbelt stockings. She also wore a black G-string bikini around her waist and brown finger gloves on her hands. The black-haired one is Olga Discordia, she's the leader and queen of the Dark Elves, she continued. The other one next to her is her right-hand assistant, Chloe. Those two were the first to succumb to KUROINU's coup d'etat. Seishin's glare hardened and his fists tightened as he saw every event that the young elf had explained. And who is the person responsible for all of this? His name is Volt. She replied as she brought up a projection of the man. He is a mid-age muscular man with scruffy hair, bushy eyebrows with a scar on the end of the left eyebrow and stubbles on his chin. He wore armor on his legs and left forearm. Along with the spalder on his left shoulder with the KUROINU insignia on it, and carried a large broadsword on his back. He wore a dark crimson cape over his clothes. He's the egocentric leader of KUROINU I mentioned. He's the one who sided with the orcs, corrupted their nation, as well as the males defiling the women. That damned beast. Seishin saw the saddened look on Aliyahi's face. Seeing her like this made him feel mad. As he looked at Volt, his glare hardened as his fists tightened up with his fingertips attempting to penetrate his skin. That butt's gonna pay for what he did. Seishin growled as he glared at Volt. His right hand enveloped in crimson sparks of electricity. Aliyah saw his anger rising as his hand was forming a zero. She took his hand in hers and calmed him down. Where are the girls right now? They are all currently in Volt's castle. She answered. I think it's better to rescue each of them at night. That's when the castle is at its weakest. Most of the guards have left for the night. You must have been there multiple times to see that happen, or to see your teacher again, huh? Seishin was right about what he said. He then turned to see Aliyah looking depressed as she saw her teacher the last time she was there. She had been turned from wise high elf to high energy SECSLV by Volt, his men, and his followers. Tears were streaming down her face as she remembered seeing that unfortunate event. Seishin hugged the young elf to cheer her up. I'll get your MSTR and everyone else out. I promise. He said, which made Aliyah look up at him. A warm smile was worn on his face as he looked down at her. Thank you. Aliyah replied as she wiped her tears away. She then handed him a few scrolls, each of them with a picture and description of each of the girls, including Olga and Chloe. Seishin nodded as he took his combat pass out. What you need that for? You said that you needed a knight. Well, I am not just any swordsman. I am a Shinigami and I needed my combat pass to do this. Observe. Seishin held his combat pass tightly and a light blue glow was shown, stretching out to every part of his body below the neck. In a second he appeared wearing his new Shinigami uniform, thin dragon skin armor gauntlets on his forearms and forelegs. He also got black LTHR Defender fingerless gloves with red scales for studs on each of his knuckles. Thick white lines in the shape of a Y ran down from the shoulders down to his waist with the mark of his combat pass in the center of the Y-shaped line, and a sleek white spalder appeared on his right shoulder with the Soul Society's deeply insignia etched on it. He also wore a dragon-skinned cloak tied around his waist and ran down to an inch below the knees. His zanpakuto, shown worn around his waist, is in a black sheath with gold mosaic markings like vines wrapped around it. Aliyah gazed at Seishin's new appearance with stars sparkling in her eyes. WL. I am glad I picked you of all fighters. Aliyah blushed a dark red after she looked at his new appearance. Seishin chuckled, sporting an embarrassed blush. Thanks. He replied. Just then, a question came to mind. Once I rescue one of the girls, where should we take them? Aliyah smiled as she grabbed Seishin and teleported the two to a secret base. Seishin looked around and saw how spacious the place is. He was about to ask her where they are at, but the young elf quickly answered. Maya and some of her past teammates built a secret cabin in the far side of the woods, originally as a base for the others in case if the chapel has invaded. We'll use that to keep the girls there, safely. Okay then. Seishin nodded as he took a look out the nearest window. He tightened his fists as he saw the sun setting over the horizon. He then went to the door before turning to Aliyah once more. I have faith that you can bring peace to Eostia, Seishin. Please bring my teacher and my friends back. The young elf pleaded. Don't worry, Aliyah, I won't let you down. You summoned me here after all. Seishin winked at the young elf before he left the cabin. He noticed that nighttime is fast approaching, so he used his flash step and leaped through until he arrived to the borderlines of Eostia. As he looked down at the corrupted land, his inner hollow appeared in astral form. "You seemed confident about this," his hollow said while crossing his arms. "Are you sure we'll see this through?" "Aaliyah summoned us because she needed our help, hollow," Seishin replied. "We can't let her down. We will save them and this land, and bring an end to KUROINU. Are you with me?" The hollow smirked as he heard what he wanted Seishin to say. He chuckled calmly as he placed his hand on Seishin's shoulder. "That's what I want to hear from you." Seishin's hollow replied with eagerness. "Time to make this fairy tale become a reality. Ready to use our new ability to get there faster? Shadow traveling? Well, we haven't fully mastered it, but what the hey, we'll test it out along the way. Let's go." Seishin took a deep breath and connected with his inner hollow. When he opened his eyes were replaced with the same eyes when he hollowified. Seishin took a leap of faith and jumped off the tree, diving head down towards the now already darkened ground. As the sun slowly sets over the horizon and nighttime was approaching, Seishin dove into the tree's shadow, en route for Volt's castle. It has been a few minutes since Seishin has left for Eostia. Aaliyah stood in the center of the room looking at the projections of the now-turned slaves, princess knights along with her teacher Celestine, Chloe and the dark elf Queen Olga. The sight of them being pounded by every male in the nation was horrifying in her eyes. Lust-fueled males fulfilling their carnal desires made the young apprentice sick to her stomach. She growled as she remembered the time Volt declared Eostia as a nation of service. Seeing her leader succumb to Volt and KUROINU reached her tilting point. She tries her best to drown out the horrible thought, though it continues to haunt her even now. Angry, she cast away the projections of them and was about to storm off to her room until she stopped. "DMN that Volt," Aaliyah growled. "This problem wouldn't have happened if he and that group didn't exist. If only I was strong enough to take them on myself. Still there is one bright side, but the question is, how strong is Seishin?" Elsewhere the sun has set and the sky has turned a dark blue over the nation. A moment later, Seishin emerged out of a tree's shadow. As he stepped out completely from the shadows, he felt a wave of dizziness rushing to his head. Everything he sees began to tilt sideways. He immediately held his head as he knelt down with his eyes closed, trying to regain his bearings. Just then, his inner hollow appeared in his astral form, stood beside him as he tries to console him. "Seishin, are you alright, kid?" Hollow asked him as he helped him up and leaned him against the tree. "We succeeded with shadow traveling, but it seems it has its side effects." "Yeah, but don't worry. I'll be alright. Shadow travel may be easy for you, but it's taxing for a normal wizard. Still I'll manage." Seishin shook his head as he regained himself as he stepped off the tree and saw a tall castle. The design was rather elvish, but the only things he sees are human males, guarding the entrance. Each of them carried the insignia of KUROINU on their clothes. "Any ideas of how to get to the castle?" Hollow asked him. "I do have one. We blend in with the people, until we find the elves," Seishin said as he started walking towards Volt's castle. A couple of people spotted the young man walking up to the place. "What do you want, young man?" one guard asked. He was a tall, muscular man with blonde scruffy hair. His brown eyes glared down at the red-haired Shinigami. "Sorry, I am a little new at these parts," Seishin said. "I had traveled a long way, just looking to have a good time." "Well, you came to the right place, young man," said blonde man chuckled as he patted his back. "Welcome to Eostia. This nation has been taken over by the most powerful group of mercenaries, KUROINU. Yeah, Lord Volt ruled this place with an iron fist," another guard said. "It's thanks to him that we have a nation to ourselves, where we can mount a woman anytime, anyplace whether they like to or not. As if they had a choice in the matter." A third guard said, which made the group laugh. Seishin chuckled sheepishly with them, but hearing what they said made him sick to his stomach and angry enough that he would kill them all in a heartbeat. However, he decided to play along until he gets into the castle. So you can mount any woman anytime, any place, huh? Seishin wondered. Sounds interesting. Go ahead and look around the place, you see the streets crawling with men mounting women. The second guard continued as he grinned. If you're man enough, you'll give it a shot. I'll take your word for it. Thanks. Seishin nodded as he proceeded down the streets. Seishin hasn't been this angry since Oko Yushima tried to kill everyone after he and Ichigo saved Nozomi. His right eye was hollowified as well as his right hand emitting small red sparks from his Zero. He was rather mad that he could destroy Volt's castle with his Zero, but that could compromise the mission and could hurt the people he's looking for. However, his hollow calmed him down. Seishin, it's going to be alright. Hollow said. You'll have your chance to lash out at Volt like the dragon you are. But right now, we must focus on saving the Dark Elves first. Seishin's anger began to lessen until he was calm. He nodded to his inner Hollow, telling him he's alright before he looked up at the castle. Before anyone tries to spot him, he ran deep into an alley. Alright, it's time we need some eyes in the sky. Seishin drew out his Zanpakuto. Preparing himself. I see what you're planning to do and I say smart choice. Hollow said. But we must be discreet. I know. Hopefully we'll find some clues on where those dark elves might be at. Erupt. Reta Nova. Seishin's Zanpakuto burst into flames until it became the very flame-colored kyber blade that is his Shurikai. He twirled his blade around in his right hand until he held it up in front of him. Now, Hano Kuran. 6 flame pillars appeared all around him, each about his height. A short second later, the flames became duplicates of Seishin. As the 6 clones stood around the original, they awaited what the original will say. Alright, I want you 6 to scout around. Seishin said. In your hands has a scroll showing the picture of Dark Elf Queen Olga Discordia and her assistant Chloe. Without talking to anyone, find clues on where they may be held at, and once you do, disperse yourself so I may gather the intel. Got it? Yes, sir. The clones cried. Alright, now scatter. Seishin said as the clones immediately left using flash step. Interesting, using his flame clones as intel relays. Seishin's Hollow grew more impressed at how Seishin uses some of his skills in a different way. I know it won't be long until one of your clones would pick up something. As each of the clones searched around from the shadows, one of them snuck inside the castle using shadow traveling. When he got it, he saw that the halls are completely empty. Seeing this as his opportunity, he silently dashed through each of the floors while remaining in the shadow world. As that clone reached a certain floor, he stopped for a second to see a throne room. As he approached the throne room, he saw a large portion of Volt's lower-ranked henchmen, cheering while drinking their wooden mugs of whiskey. The clone couldn't see what's in the center, so he slid up to the ceiling and saw what's something that left him shocked to see, Olga and Chloe being violated by all the lust-craved henchmen. For men, one was bald with blue eyes wearing a green bandana over his dark violet shirt, the second was a shirtless scruffy blonde with green eyes. The third was orange-haired man with brown eyes banging Chloe's lower region with his musky meat muscle, and same with the fourth, a black-eyes man with matching wavy hair pounding Olga's royal entrance. It wasn't long as those 4 SEC-hungry monsters emptied their loads in both ends. Chloe and Olga both fell on the floor, covered in musky man milk with their eyes rolled up in their heads, their tongues hanging out and twitching from the excess juice leaking out. Well done, everyone. A brown-eyed man with dusty red hair wearing the KUROINU emblem on his right shoulder stood in the middle. To the clone's guess, he must be Volt's second in command. Another day in paradise. Eostia's under our thumb and soon, every continent will fall under our rule. But today, we're celebrating our month-long rule, and to top it off, Volt is staying at Celestine's and left me in charge. He also sent us his faithful orcs to breed with our dark elves. Ready to see some orc on elf action. As the henchmen cheered, anxious to see them do their thing, the clone shifted his eyes and saw two ogres. One was tall, dusty green with black eyes wearing a brown overall that covered all but his legs. The other was 3 feet taller than the average human, blue skin and red eyes, and wore a similar overall that was a little shorter. They started walking towards the center and gazed down at the two dark elves with their cocks in their hands. Oh, no they're not. Better report this to Seishin. The clone said before he dissolved into thin air. Seishin, who remained calm by meditating to pass the time, waited for any news. Seconds later, he sensed one of his clones returning intel on where the dark elves are at. Seishin rose back up on his feet while his inner hollow appeared in his astral form. You sense it too, huh? Seishin's hollow said. What are you going to do? It's obvious, hollow. Barge in, kick their asses, save the girls and get out before any guards notices. Seishin answered as he grabbed his Zanpakuto. But how? They'll notice you either by your face or your uniform. Seishin's hollow wondered until he stopped as he saw Seishin reaching for an old cloak that was hanging out by an old window. Once he put it on, he then summoned his hollow mask. Time I give those minions of Volt a reason to fear. Seishin said as he used his shadow travel. Back at Volt's castle, the orcs were inches away from slamming their elephant shafts inside their lower entrances. All of the henchmen were cheering, eager to see the orcs breed with the dark elf queen and her handmaiden. Even the drunk happy second in command was anxious to see this happen. Yeah. Come on. Breed those where? He cried. As the orcs were about to slide their supersized shafts in them, they suddenly felt the room shake like there is an earthquake happening. Then the fires lighting each torch and corner of the room started flickering until it was snuffed out and the shaking stopped. Then there were 6 slices heard. A couple of the henchmen immediately relit the room, only to see both the orcs' heads and their super shafts sliced off, though their bodies remained still. What the hell? The second in command gasped at what happened. Who is responsible for this? That would be me. The mysterious intruder appeared standing by the entrance seconds after orcs' bodies then split in half. The second in command was shocked as he saw the intruder carrying both of the unconscious elves on his shoulders. Who? Who the hell are you? The second in command cried, which the masked man didn't answer. He growled as he and his henchmen charged towards the masked man with swords in hand. However, they were too slow for the masked man. He simply tossed the unconscious elves in the air for a few seconds, before Seishin used his flash step and mercilessly cut them down with his Zanpakuto. The brown-eyed man was shocked that all of the other men were cut down by that man with ease. That same masked man then reappeared back at the entrance as he then caught the elves. Just what are you? He asked the masked man, which he didn't reply as he started walking away with the elves on his shoulders. He growled as the intruder started walking away with 2 of Volt's prizes in his hands. Do you intend to capture all the princess knights, as you have with those elves? The second in command asked, which then made the masked man stop. Why would you do all of this? Don't you want to have as much women as you want? Women here are only made to be our toys in our nation of pleasure. Why don't you just join us and end this trivial goal? Will you ever shut up? The masked man answered, which the brown-eyed man immediately froze. It sickens me to see such scum like you and Volt treat women like toys. Which is why I am here, to end KUROINU's rule on this land. We'll see about that. Lord Volt will find you, and the second in command froze as he saw the masked man raised his hand and pointed his index finger. He began to become even more afraid as a red orb of immense spiritual energy the size of his hand was formed. Lord Volt will fail. The masked man answered. Once I save the princess knights, he will be next to die. KUROINU's end has come and I'll make sure it'll happen. Too bad you won't be around to see it happen. Why you? As the second-in-command got up and was about to charge at the masked man, HR froze when he saw a ball of red energy on the tip of his finger, charging up. Zero. The masked man quietly muttered as he fired his zero at him and the room itself before using shadow travel once more. The second-in-command made his last gasp before he was caught in his blast, destroying the throne room and any evidence. Everyone outside was shocked as the castle was attacked. Most of Volt's guards that were outside all watched as the castle was attacked. Someone tell Lord Volt that his castle was just attacked. One of the guards cried. A moment later, Seishin seeped out of Aaliyah's shadow with the elves in hand. Seishin gently sat them down as he immediately dehollowified himself, gasping for breath. Seishin. Are you alright? Aaliyah asked the young red-haired man. Don't worry about me. Just tend to Chloe and Olga, please. Seishin said as he was catching his breath. Aaliyah nodded as she took both Chloe and Olga into the bathing chambers. She removed their clothes and gently placed them in there. She then poured a drop of divine oil, making the water in the large pool bubble. The water mixed with the oil began to restore them completely to the point before Volt and his cronies violated them. Man. Shadow traveling is still difficult to tame. Seishin said as his hollow appeared in his astral form once more. Are you alright, kid? Seishin's hollow asked as he helped him up. Don't worry about me, I'll manage. Seishin replied. It's best you should not use shadow travel for a while, unless you really need to use it. Hollow said. We'll do some training with that ability later until you become more adjusted to using that power. Yeah, good idea. Seishin answered. Hours later, Volt and his elite soldiers returned to his castle, only to see what was his throne, destroyed. A look of shock was shown as he rushed into the debris-covered room. He looked around and saw charred remains of some pillars and the ceiling all over the dried blood-covered floor. When he stood in the middle of the room, he saw his loyal second-in-command, coughing while laying against the wall, badly hurt and slowly dying. Tell me what happened here. Volt asked him. There was, a masked man, with piercing red eyes and the face of a dragon. The second-in-command weakly answered, he infiltrated the castle, killed everyone here and made off with the dark elves. How can that be? Volt growled. Did this man do all of this? Why yes, he can fire some sort of energy beam out of his hands like magic. The weakened man continued with a weakened cough. He's planning to end KUROINU after saving all of the slaves you caught. We have to stop him, before it's too. With all of his strength gone, Volt's second-in-command has died from his injuries. Volt tightened his fists as he got up. As he and the other mercenaries all mourned for their loss, one of them turned around to see all the damage one person did. As he turned to the entrance of the throne room, he was shocked to see that the masked man left Volt something to remember. Lord Volt, look! He cried, which got Volt's attention. As Volt turned to the entrance, he was shocked to see the message the masked man left for him. KUROINU will fall, once the princess knights are saved. Judgment is coming for you, Volt, were the words he wrote on the wall in orc blood. His face glared, his teeth were mashed, and a stream of blood was leaking out from the palm of his hand. I won't let him destroy all that we created. Volt growled. Get every mercenary around Eostia to tighten up their guard posts. And if any of them see this masked man, capture him. Yes, sir. Everyone replied. Back at the chapel, Seishin was meditating in the middle of the room. He got back up after he felt his fatigue subside. Just after he finished stretching from his meditation, Aaliyah stepped out of the bathing chamber to see him. Seishin, are you available? Aaliyah asked him. Oh, Aaliyah, yeah I am. He replied as he approached the high elf apprentice. How's Chloe and Olga? Their recovery was a success and they're about to wake up, which is why I came to talk to you. Aliyah answered. But it's best that you should be careful. Though they're recovered, I highly doubt they would trust any humans. Especially since Volt broke them. Seishin pondered for a moment before he then opened his eyes and started walking towards the room, before placing his zanpakuto by the doorway. I can't make any promises. But I'll do my best to show them that they can trust me. You're more than welcome to watch. Well, I intend to either way. Aliyah replied as she followed Seishin into the bathing chambers to see both Chloe and Olga already dressed. The two dark elves stopped to see both the high elf apprentice standing beside Seishin. When they saw the red-haired man, Chloe retaliated by throwing a dagger towards the red-haired Shinigami, only for him to lazily lean his head to the left, watching the dagger fly by him and stab the door. Well, you're back to your full strength, Chloe and Olga. Seishin said to the two elves. I know you two are indeed angry, but you shouldn't point your anger at me. You should blame Volt for what he and his cronies did to you too. Who are you, how do you know about us, and where are we? Olga asked him while glaring at him. My name is Seishin Samyu, substitute Soul Reaper. Seishin introduced himself. I was brought here by Aliyah, apprentice to High Elf Celestine Lucullus, to the Princess Knight's secret chapel, which is far off the border of Eostia. That's where you are at right now. As for how I know you both. Aliyah brought me up to speed with what's going on. As Seishin finished talking with Olga, the corner of his right eye caught glimpse of Chloe charging furiously at Seishin with a second dagger in hand, attempting to pierce his heart. Seishin used his flash step to evade her attack, only for him to reappear beside her half a second later. He grabbed her arm and made her drop her dagger. He then pinned her down to the ground while keeping her left arm held behind her back while kneeling down. Let me go. Chloe yelled to him as she struggles to free herself. Not until you learn to control yourself. Seishin rebuked. Fighting me won't solve anything. I'm not the enemy here, nor do I work for him. Chloe growled as she managed to free herself at the last second. She got back up on her feet while rubbing her left arm. Seishin then got back on his feet and looked right back at her. After all I'd been through, all both me and my queen had been through, what makes you think you don't work for them? Chloe spat angrily back at Seishin, making his right eye twitch in anger a little. Seishin. Aliyah called out to him. Seishin raised his right hand a little, motioning the apprentice to stay back, letting her know everything's alright. In case if your little elf brain couldn't comprehend, who was it that snuck into that horrid castle, crashed a party, which you and your anger-influenced queen were the main course, and brought you two here? Seishin rebuked shocking Chloe, and to his little surprise Olga. You should be grateful, that someone here has the guts to rescue you from that castle. What? Why you? Just then, Olga stepped forward in front of Chloe. Seishin anticipated what's about to happen, so he stepped forward 3 times. He looked at the dark elf queen as her dark aura began surging, coating the room in the same color as her aura. You dare insult me and my handmaiden like that? Do you know who you're talking to? Olga's gold eyes glared at Seishin with immense anger as her aura grew to a point that a human would be afraid of her. I am the queen of the dark elves, masters of dark magic and empress of all chaos and discord. No one, not even you, you filthy lowlife, should oppose me and get away with it. Disappear. Olga chanted a foreign elvish language before she fired a dark beam of energy towards Seishin. Aliyah called out to him once more, but Seishin didn't look back. Inches before the beam closed in, a calm smirk was shown before the blast connected. Just then, as the smoke cleared, both Chloe and Olga as well as Aliyah were shocked as Seishin emerged unharmed. Only his right hand was out, and to their surprise, his signature hollow mask was on his face. How? My attack was strong enough to kill a human on contact. Olga cried. Just what are you? That may be true, but I am not like any other humans, Olga. Seishin calmly answered as he started walking towards them. Like I said, I am a substitute soul reaper, and quite a powerful one. Compared to the enemies I fought during my time, your attack simply tickled. Seishin then stood in front of the dark elf queen who grew scared of him, but the young man remained calm as he looked at her and Chloe. He remembered one other thing about the dark elves that Aaliyah had told him. Seeing that both of them are the last two in existence made him feel rather bad. To Olga's and Chloe's surprise, Seishin's looked down before he closed his eyes as his hollow mask dissolved. Aaliyah told me what happened to the rest of the dark elves after Volt double-crossed you. Olga was surprised at what Seishin had learned before he rescued her. My greatest sympathies for your loss, Olga. You as well, Chloe. However, being mad at me won't solve anything or be one step closer to fighting Volt. You need my help and I'll be happy to help you attain the peace you want. But in order to bring peace to Eostia, I first have to save the princess knights from the other districts. I only ask you if you want to work together with me. In return, I'll promise you revenge, on the man who made your lives miserable, Volt. It is your choice and I hope you too would make the right decision. Olga and Chloe pondered over what Seishin said, until the two gasped as they watched him leaving the room. Seishin stood by Aaliyah and smiled as he petted her head before leaving the room. Queen Olga. Chloe. Aaliyah called out to them calmly. I also have the ability to sense people's hearts and right now Seishin's intention to save you too as well as my teacher and the other knights are pure. He's not a bad guy after all. Olga and Chloe remained quiet after hearing what Seishin and now Aaliyah said. I do expect you two to apologize to him when you see him in the morning or so. In the meantime, you two can sleep in one of the guest rooms for the time being. Aaliyah calmly nodded as she left the bathing room to see Seishin sitting down by a pillar. She approached him and sat beside him, which got his attention. He looked at the young elfling who rested her head on his arm for a minute before he let her rest her head on his lap. My teacher isn't in Volt's castle, isn't she? She asked. No, but I have a feeling that she and the other princess knights are being captive in each of the other districts, especially since I heard Volt's second-in-command said that he was away at Celestine's place. Seishin answered. Don't worry, Aaliyah. I'll keep on helping you as we save the others. Seishin. Aaliyah looked up at him. He looked back down and smiled at her, knowing he'll keep his promise to her. Don't worry, I won't let you down. Seishin continued. Right now, if I know KUROINU, they are tightening their security all across the nation. Let us just lay low for now before we make our move on saving one of the princess knights. Who's the closest one in Eostia that I can get to faster? Aaliyah sat up and formed a projection using her aura. The projection shows a map of Eostia and the districts it has. She looked at the map alongside Seishin as the two looked at the closest one. It wasn't long until she found the closest one she picked. Alright then, since we're off the west border, the closest would have to be Fio. That's where Alicia and Prim are at. Aaliyah answered. Good, we'll wait a few days before we plan to rescue Alicia and Prim. Seishin nodded. I'll do a little less of shadow traveling, still need time to MSTR it without any side effects. We have a guest room for you, follow me. Aaliyah said as she leads him into the halls towards his new room. Unknowns to them, Chloe and Olga followed them along the way. It wasn't long they found where Seishin would be residing at. The two elves looked at each other and nodded for what they're going to do. Later that very night, Seishin was already in his bed. He was wearing only the lower half of his shihakusho while looking up at the ceiling. He had thought over what happened with Olga and Chloe, seeing the look on their faces when they saw his hollow mask as well as when he easily blocked one of Olga's most powerful destructive spells. He knows he wouldn't kill them without a reason to, nor that he didn't want to be too HRD on them. Instead of thinking it over, he sighed as he decided to sleep it off. Just then, he heard a set of knocks. He groaned as he got up and walked over to the door. To his surprise, it was Olga and Chloe. Is it too late to talk? Chloe asked. Ah. Chloe, Olga. Seishin was rather puzzled, but seeing them here without their killing intent is better than nothing. No. It's not too late, please come in. Seishin stood back as he let the two dark elves come in. To his surprise, he saw a blush on both the elves' faces. He knew he should have put on a shirt before answering, but seeing that this is important, he put that thought aside and sat on his bed. Seishin, am I saying your name right? Olga was first to speak. Chloe and I have been thinking over what you said and what that elf apprentice had said, also. So we wanted to do something before we would tell you our decision. What would that be? Just as Seishin was about to ask, he was quite surprised that both Olga and Chloe knelt down before him. Seishin stood up, astonished at what had happened. Young Shinigami, we were sorry for the way we acted. Olga continued. We were indeed mad, but at the wrong person. Indeed, we should be pointing our anger at Volt. Chloe joined in. We've thought that you were just as lowly as those KUROINU bastards, but hearing what you said to your friend made us realize that not all humans are bad. I never expected you to be kind to us. Olga said. So after we took some time to think it over, we've made our decision. And what is your decision? He wondered. We would like to join you on your quest to destroy KUROINU. Both the girls said. We want to lend our strength and kill that bastard Volt, Chloe said. We want to make him suffer for what he did to us. The training, it's still in our minds. Haunting us every second. I understand your pain, Chloe. Both yours and Olga's. Seishin answered as the two looked up at him. Women, even appealing elves such as the both of you, being used like nothing but toys for the men to get their claws on. Where I come from, we treat women with respect. They do, don't they? Olga asked, leaving Seishin confused at the tone she used when she asked him. He watched as both Chloe and Olga stood up, gazing at the young man. What are you two planning to do? Seishin asked them. Seishin, you risked yourself to save the both of us. In return, we'll do whatever you want. Olga answered. Also, in return for your actions, we want to thank you. Chloe added as the two grew closer to him, until Olga wrapped her arms around his neck. We would like to reward you with a gift. Us. The dark elf queen quickly leaned in and kissed the red-haired man, leaving him surprised. As Olga continued to embrace the young man, Chloe immediately started stripping the rest of his clothes off. Seishin immediately managed to free himself from her embrace at the last second. What's going on here? Seishin wondered, growing a little hesitant. We want to offer ourselves to you, Seishin. Chloe replied as she stripped off her clothes. Please accept our reward, it's all we have left at the moment. You said that you're a powerful soul reaper, no? Olga said as she showed him her endowed assets. Chloe and myself want to test your stamina. We also want to forget how that bastard Volt took us. So please, make us feel good. Both the elves took both of Seishin's hands and planted them on their melons. Seishin blushed a dark red as he felt how soft both Chloe's and Olga's melons are. As he looked at both of the elves, Seishin felt their concern, their need to forget what had happened to them when KUROINU took them. Seeing how much the two needed this, Seishin calmly nodded and kissed the queen once more while massaging their melons, making them at his pleasuring touch. At the same time, Olga felt the softness of Seishin's embrace. Compared to the forceful mashes those mercenaries gave them, Seishin was like nirvana to her. At the same time, Chloe removed the rest of his clothes, and once she removed his boxers, she was surprised at how big his was. Olga glanced down at his manhood and she was just as surprised as Chloe was. He's even bigger than Volt. Chloe gasped. How is that even possible? At least he's not as big as an orc. Olga said as she and Chloe started stroking his, earning a from the young man. As the two dark elves looked up at Seishin, the two then leaned down and started licking the sides of his. Wow, this feels really good. Seishin said as his back was arched and head snapped back. He never expected this feeling from a dark elf, yet alone two of them to feel this good. The two elves licked the sides of his and looked up at the young man as he moaned from the amazing STMLTN his strong is getting. Chloe, Olga. I'll be happy to share with you the passion that you were denied from. Seishin said. Both Chloe and Olga looked up at Seishin as he gently laid them down on the bed. Then he went for his Zanpakuto before, he explained what he's about to do. I used this move to help find you too. Seishin picked up his Zanpakuto and drew it out. This move can work for any occasion, from confusing enemies to stealth and intel. I haven't used this to connect to more than one woman, but couldn't hurt to try. I trust your actions, Seishin. Chloe said with Olga agreeing beside her. Erupt, Red Nova. Now, Hano Koran. Seishin summoned his signature Crimson Kyber blade, then a flame pillar appeared beside him until it turned human shape. A copy of Seishin was successfully formed. The two elves were amazed that Seishin's skill made a perfect copy of himself from head to toe and in between. The two selves nodded and walked towards the two elves. The clone went for Chloe, while the original went for Olga. Clone Seishin passionately kissed Chloe, the two closed their eyes and the elf assistant wrapped her arms around the clone's neck as the clone began FNDLNG her perky melons. Chloe haven't felt such pleasure before as the clone continued feeling up her melons and teased her hardened nipples while he started kissing the right side of her neck. He lowered his left hand down to her shaven crotch and softly rubbed his middle finger against her folds. Chloe opened her eyes and gasped at the feel of his hand caressing her crotch, no, her entire body. As the young elf continued moaning, she shifted her eyes as saw Olga having fun for once. She had her body on top of Seishin while sucking on his girth. Seishin moaned as he felt such pleasure coming from the dark elf queen. Seeing that he should test her stamina, Seishin lifted her head and started licking his tongue against her folds. Olga gasped at the feel of Seishin's tongue lapping her lower region, making her a little weak in the knees. Seeing that as a challenge, Olga smirked before she wrapped her massive mounds on his strong. She stroked his strong girth between her melons while sucking on the tip. Seishin endured the pleasuring combo of Olga's paizuri and BLWJB while he continued licking her folds. He then started suckling her CLT while sliding his middle finger inside her and wriggled it in her while he inconspicuously adding his spirit energy in the mix. Olga gasped at the sudden sensation and reached her CLMX so quickly. You, Baka. You did something to make me come like that. Olga glared at Seishin. The young man chuckled happily at what happened. Still, it felt really good. Olga shifted her eyes back at Chloe as she was moaning as Seishin's clone was licking her crotch and calmly smirked at how Seishin and his clone are taking care of them. Chloe moaned from his magic touch, as she began FNDLNG her BRST with one hand and the other holding the clone's head. Seishin's clone smirked as he added his spirit energy into his tongue, the same way the original did when made Olga CLMX. Chloe gasped and moaned as she reached her CLMX the same way Olga did. Chloe took her time regaining her breathing for a moment before Seishin's clone sat up and aligned his strong PP to her entrance. Olga smirked as she moved to straddle his strong, the Dark Queen raised her hips and aligned Seishin's hardness to her entrance. You are indeed strong and crafty, for a soul reaper. Olga said. But I wonder how much stamina do you have against me? Olga pressed her slit against his tip and slowly pushed it in. She held his hands tightly as he felt her wet slit sliding down on his strong inch by inch until she was halfway. Then she pushed down the rest of his in with one go, as she endured the pain of her seal broken. Seishin was about to use his healing ability until Olga stopped him. Don't. I want to feel what it's like to lose my virginity to a strong protector. Olga said to him until he sat up and kissed her while he wrapped his arms around her, keeping her close. At the same time, Seishin's clone pressed the tip of his against Chloe's slit and slowly slid it inside her while the clone's hands began glowing. Inch by inch, Chloe endured the pain, only to feel it numbing away as Seishin's clone began healing her, until his entire length was inside Chloe. Ah! You're so big! Chloe cried as she wrapped her arms around his neck, keeping him close. You're bigger than Volt, yet it's just the right size. I agree with Chloe. Olga moaned as she felt Seishin's twitching being wrapped by her inner walls. You're not like an orc, but you are definitely big. I'll give you time to adjust. Seishin said. So you'll be comfortable. Seishin's clone added. All we care is giving you the passion Volt denied you all these days. I'll take good care of you and Chloe, Olga. Seishin continued. I promise you both. I know you will. Olga said as she grew more adjusted with Seishin's inside her. I believe you'll destroy Volt and I can't wait to see it happen. Chloe added. After a small moment of the two elves getting adjusted, they nodded to Seishin and his clone to start. Seishin's clone was first to start. He held her hips and started moving slowly inside her while Chloe held him close with her head resting on his shoulders. Her soft moans escaped her and filled the room as Seishin's clone began his pleasuring assault inside her. Olga began moaning as well as she felt his thickness gliding against her inner walls. Seishin watched as she arched her back, feeling a level of sensation coursing through her body. The Dark Elf Queen instinctively took Seishin's right hand and planted it on her left breast, motioning him to massage it. Compared to, Volt. You're like Nirvana to us. Chloe said as she felt the clone's length going a little deeper for a minute. You'll love this, Chloe. Seishin's clone laid Chloe sideways and raised her right leg around his left and resumed his thrusts. Chloe grew an octave louder as she felt his strong PP going deeper inside her. At the same time, Seishin had the Dark Queen on her hands and knees on the bed while Seishin was behind her sliding strong thickness deeper inside her. Olga grew fascinated at how well the Shinigami and his clone were treating them. Olga's inner lust began to surface as she wrapped her legs around his waist and suddenly flipped in until he's on the bed and her on top. Seishin, let me show you just how well us dark elves do. Olga said, which made Seishin nervously gulp down from what she said. As the dark elves continued to enjoy their heated passion, unknown to them, Aaliyah was peeping on them. The high elf's apprentice blushed a dark red as she watched Seishin and his clone pleasing the two dark elves. Their moans reached to her ears as she froze, silently in place. As she watched them mating like crazy, the apprentice's arousal began to form as she imagined Seishin doing the same things to her. Her right hand started moving on its own and slid inside her top and massaged her breast. She grew harder to breathe while her heart began beating fast as she continued to massage her breast and tease her hardened bud sticking out of her top. At the same time, her other hand slid in her frilly skirt and started rubbing her middle finger against her already wet folds. At the same time, Olga and Chloe with both riding Seishin and his clone, kissing them feverishly as they felt their strong shafts hitting their cervixes. The dark elves were enjoying this entirely than what those orcs and minions had done to them. Seishin sat up and had his back against the wall while the clone had her on her hands and knees. Both the elves as Seishin and his clone knew that they want to continue, but even they are nearing their climaxes. Olga, I'm about to drip. Seishin groaned as he watched her with her eyes closed and her heaving melons in his face. It's okay. Leak inside me. I want it. Olga cried as she bounced on his lap even faster. Chloe, I'm reaching my limit. Seishin's clone said as he felt his PP tingling, almost ready to burst. Leak inside me. Don't stop. Chloe cried as she felt his PP ready to explode. At the same time, Aaliyah, who was fingering her lower orifice, was nearing her CLMX. She went faster and deeper as she slid two fingers inside her while her ring finger was flicking her CLT. I can't hold it in. I'm about to leak. I'm leaking. Aaliyah thought as she finally reached her limit and silently groaned as she accidentally squirts her juices against the nearby wall. At the same time, Seishin, his clone, and the dark elves all came together. When Aaliyah came to, she silently gasped at what she did as well as the mess she made when she climaxed. She got herself together, used her magic to clean up her splattered mess and quickly went to her room without making a sound. Olga and Chloe, on the other hand, felt a torrent of juices filling them up. The elves felt the euphoria from their heated passion. At the same time, they all grew worn from the romps they all did. Seishin's clone carried Chloe and set her beside Seishin and Olga before dissolving into thin air. The dark elf queen and Chloe laid on his chest, smiling in complete bliss, while Seishin looked down at them. "You're amazing, Seishin," Chloe said as she endured the twitchy after-pleasure from their CLMX. "You are indeed a sect god." Olga smirked, who endured the after-pleasure effect as well. "You filled us up so much, and I can tell you're still strong." The dark elf queen smirked as she sat up, leaned into his left ear and whispered. "Still up for another round?" "Yeah, Seishin. I want to feel that intense passion. We want you so bad." Chloe grinned as she and Olga pressed their bodies against him. "Well, girls, I'm not sure if I got enough to do another round dash." Just then, Olga casted a spell with her staff, which not only restored it, but made it so he has enough stamina to last until the sunrise. "You do now," Olga said as she and Chloe smirked. "Now, let's have some fun." Girls. Girls. Seishin tried to reason with them, but before he knew it, he was securely dog-piled by the girls. Was the only thing Seishin cried as his voice echoed the night sky. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 2. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Takamagara 2012 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.